everyone, Clark of the Geek here. Welcome back to a brand new video, and today we're continuing the Doctor Who ranking series with Series 4. Now, Series 4 was a very notable series for the show. You know, it was David Tennant's final series, or final full series as the Doctor. It was Russell T Davies' final series as showrunner. We had Donna returning from The Runaway Bride as a full-time companion, and this is where Doctor Who, in the modern series at least, peaked. It's got the highest viewing figures in terms of an average of a series. It's got the highest to this day. And this is at a time when Doctor Who was everywhere. You know, you could not go into a shop without seeing that Doctor Who, you know, that orange fiery Doctor Who logo emblazed on everything. You could not go in the street without seeing posters for the next series. It's like, this is when Doctor Who in the new series peaked. And no wonder, it's a cracking series. It is the culmination of everything from the RTD era. And it goes out with a bang. And although I do slightly prefer Series 1 to this series, Series 4 is not far off. It's got some cracking episodes, and there's no bad episode in this series. A couple of average ones, like with Series 1, but none that I would dread rewatching necessarily. So, let's get to the ranking. Alonzi? Number 10, Planet of the Ood. Now, I feel like this will be a bit of a controversial pick, but I've never clicked with this story. Yeah, you've got the Doctor and Donna, but you can get that with any other story. So what makes this so special? And yeah, it has got sort of good commentary on like slavery, but that's what it's really got going for it. It's a pretty bland story for me. The Ood aren't as effective as they were in the Satan 2 apart from Series 2. The villain is pretty one note, and I just don't really remember much about it. Number 9, The Doctor's Daughter. Now, this story's not bad. It's got a cool concept with, you know, Jenny being created from the Doctor's DNA. You know, that's quite cool. And obviously with hindsight, because David Tennant and George Tennant got married, and because George Tennant, the actor who plays Jenny, is the real-life daughter of Peter Davison, you know, that's quite funny for Doctor Who fans. But other than that, it's a bit of a sort of a samey story, you know. Alien planet, there's a war going on. A bit, yeah, it's a bit generic. But I do quite like the design of the Hath, though. They're quite cool monsters. Number 8, The SONTARAN Stratagem and the Poison Sky. Now, I quite enjoy this story. It's great to see Martha return, you know, temporarily. It's great seeing Wilf back and, you know, Donna's family, and obviously Tennant and Catherine Tate are great. It's great to see the Sontarans back because they're one of my favourite monsters in the show's history. And it feels like a proper John Pertwee story, you know, Earth-based unit, you know, lots of great action scenes. It's a really fun action story. And there's some pretty dark moments, you know, the Sontarans poisoning the Earth. That's quite dark. But I've got to say, the character of Luke, the younger kid, I find him quite annoying. But overall, I just enjoy the story. Number 7, Partners in Crime. I just find this a really fun series opener. Obviously, this is the first time that David Tennant and Catherine Tate properly start their run as the Doctor and Donna. And they just hit the ground running, honestly. They're so fun to watch, and they really just carry the story. It's also quite, it's also a cool sort of, like, investigation story about this, you know, about this company. But it's done in such a fun way, like, such a comedic way, that it's just so endearing to watch. And also the adipose are just so adorable. Number 6, The Unicorn and the Wasp. Again, like Partners in Crime, this is just a proper feel-good story. It's a nice historical setting. Agatha Christie's great in this story, and it feels like a proper sort of Agatha Christie murder mystery story. You know, it uses the historical context to great effect. I will admit, though, that having the giant wasp does seem a bit far-fetched, but overall, I find it just entertaining. Number 5, The Fires of Pompeii. This story is a genuinely great historical, and it's a proper key moment for the Doctor and Donna's relationship. It's a very action-packed story. The Parvels hold up as a monster really well. They're quite sinister. And some great characters. And we got Peter Capaldi in this story before he became the Doctor. And they reference this story later on in his era, which is really cool. But the main thing I love about the story is its moral dilemma. Yes, you can't change the past, and the Doctor knows that. But Donna just urges him to save someone. And that's an incredible little message for the story. Also, Karen Gillan was in this before she became Amy Pond, so yeah. Number 4, Stolen Earth and Journey's End. This story is just epic. It is Infinity War before Infinity War was even a thing. Culmination of everything, you know, you've got so many different characters returning, not just from Doctor Who, but from Torchwood and the Sarah Jane adventures. You get little plot threads from all kinds of stories, even stories like Unquiet Dead or Voyage of the Damned, they get a bit of a payoff here, you know. They get a mention, and It is the proper culmination of everything. We also get to see a full-on Dalek invasion, and the Daleks are just... It's great, you know. It's not quite as good as the Eccleston stories, but they're still really intimidating, they're Stolen Earth. And that cliffhanger is one for the ages. The regeneration twist. Every character is in a bit of trouble, and it is mental. However, Journey's End, I think, lets it down. It's over-ambitious, and it, again, like with some other finales I've talked about in this series, it writes itself into a corner by the end. However, Donna's exit is absolute perfection. It is so... It's heartbreaking to watch, having to forget the Doctor. And what gets me always is Rolf's reaction. When he opens the door and Donna's unconscious, his face is just... It breaks me every time. Number 3, Turn Left. Now, one of Rusty Davies' trademarks as a writer, in terms of Doctor Who at least, is that he goes really bombastic and really big. And sometimes it doesn't quite work. Here, though, it does. It's a classic case of the butterfly effect where, you know, you change one thing, everything else is ruined in the future. But it views it through the lens of various RTD stories. You know, what if Donna wasn't there to help the Doctor? It's properly messed up and dark in some bits. It's such a bleak story. It just feels like there's no hope. It's like, you know, Donna and her family having to take refuge. The army soldiers pointing the gun at her because they can see like the beetle. It's ballsy stuff, and it has balls to it. Also, the music in this story is fantastic. A Dazzling End, which is one of the tracks, is one of the greatest pieces of music in Doctor Who, in my opinion. Number 2, Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. Once again, another stellar Stephen Moffat script. It's got so many intriguing ideas in the story, like a space library, the data cloud, when Donna's in that sort of weird fantasy world. It's so odd and bizarre, but it works so well. The Vashta Nerada are such a creepy, sinister monster, They play on the paranoia of, like, the dark, fear of the dark. It's shadows killing you. That's really creepy. You've also got some great side characters with the archaeologist crew, and this is also the first story with River Songin, played wonderfully by Alex Kingston, and she was such an interesting character. And David Tennant is on fine form as a Doctor in this story, one of his best. Number 1, Midnight. Now, we've already talked about how Rusty Davies was a bit of a bombastic writer. So what happens when a writer like that controls himself and writes some small-scale, self-contained horror story? You get one of the greatest and scariest Doctor Who stories in its entire history. This story really plays on the fear of paranoia, which is unsettling enough, but the fact that you don't see the monster, it's left up to the imagination. It's chilling stuff. And when you see the Doctor visibly scared, it's genuinely unsettling. The side characters are all fantastic, just because they're so normal, and it's so chilling when they all start turning on each other. It's scary of how real that is. And the ending is really sort of ambiguous as to what has happened, and it leaves you feel uneasy and scared. But that's a good thing. Horror should do that to you. And this story succeeds with flying colours. So that was Doctor Who Series 4 ranked. How would you rank the series, guys? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And this is Clack of the Geek signing out. Goodbye, everyone.